So we can, still within the performance section of the agenda, we can move on to corporate performance. Trevor.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just take you through the headlines from this section. In November, patient and user numbers increased and were above contracted levels for the core service for only the second time this year. We returned to achieving our target for the time taken to access the service, although our clinical assessment times for less and non-urgent calls were again not as good as we would like due to difficulties with nursing numbers at weekends and peak periods. Our urgent and emergency referral levels were marginally outside of target in November, and our sickness and attrition levels were also above target in the month. Sickness rates are reported in a separate report within this section. Innovation schemes are progressing, although the Wellness Project is now being deferred to focus on patient decision aids and telehealth. Our overall financial performance remains strong. Year-to-date surplus of £2.7 million, cash balances of £16.4 million, and total capital expenditure for the year-to-date of £22.3 million. We continue to closely manage our finances. We remain on forecast to deliver a surplus this year, and that's after returning non-recurrent funds that we do not require this year to the Strategic Health Authority. Those funds are now anticipated for return and deployment in the new year.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. So how do we want to take the discussion? Shall we take discussion on overall corporate performance and finance, and then we'll have a separate discussion about sickness? Does that make sense? So sticking to overall corporate performance and finance, are there any comments or questions from anyone on the board?
I just want to comment on the finance. We continue to show very good financial performance ratings, which I think is vital, as we continue to say. But what I think it shows, we've had to adjust quite a lot in year, and my feeling is that we are in control of our financial performance, in the sense that although we have had a bit of a rough ride in terms of trying to stick with our original budget proposals, the executives have particularly managed to stay in front of events and take action to mitigate the problem as we've gone forward. And I think that is very, gives confidence that we are in control of those situations. My concern continues to be the sustainability of the cost improvement programme in the long term, and I know there's work being done on that, but it still needs to be kept at the very front of the thinking of the executive. But it's the bit about being in control which I wanted to reinforce.
Yes, I agree with you, Peter. There's a sense that the organisation is better than it used to be at predicting and proactively taking the measures that are required to keep within balance, rather than relying on good fortune.
You can take it too far sometimes. I've done it myself as an executive, where you remove all people's powers to do anything, so that you can't overspend. That doesn't. It's a more sophisticated touch that we've got here, which I think looks good for the future for us. I'd say looks.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Yes.
Let's hope so. Okay, Tim.
I won't take it.
We had a much more detailed look at the numbers in the Finance Committee, but what I'd like to ask, we've heard anecdotally around the table about very high call volumes and the impact of bad weather. I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about what's happening in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, I can.
Yes, Rina.
I know that's not on the agenda, of course.
Well, we would obviously have a more detailed discussion about it in January.
Absolutely.
When we look at,
Could you just give us a sort of impressionistic feel about how things are going, how the staff are coping, how it feels to be delivering the service at this point, how we're doing?
I think in summary, this weekend that we've just had is one of the busiest that the service has ever experienced. And it's been the same for the last 3 weeks. So one of the charts that I've got, but for the purposes of the people who are watching online who won't be able to see that, we'll put it up afterwards perhaps, is we've done some work to look at how much above forecast the calls offered are to the service. And I know we're not alone in this. We know from our discussions, which we have on a at the weekends, and particularly hourly basis with some of our ambulance trust colleagues, is that the whole service is under a great deal of strain. So this weekend that's just gone, we had call volumes offered in excess of 50% more than what we'd forecast. That's continued a trend from the last couple of weeks of call volumes being in excess of 26 and 38% above forecast for this time of year. And as colleagues who know, we had the board seminar on forecasting. Our forecasting is usually quite accurate. So this prolonged severe weather is having a distinct impact on our patients' need to access the service because other services are not available to them. It's also causing quite considerable issues for our staff in their ability. So we have the benefit, obviously, of being spread across the country. But the way in which the weather has been affecting the country is that the first wave of bad weather affected some of our northern sites in particularly very, very much, and one of our sites was virtually closed, which meant that staff couldn't get in at all. And now this second wave of cold weather is affecting sites that weren't affected by the first lot. So it doesn't rain, it snows. So we're doing all we can to help staff to obviously get into work, and we've been in discussion with ambulance trust colleagues again about using their 4x4 vehicles and transport mechanisms to get our staff to work where we are co-located. We've also distributed all of our laptops so that those who can work from home are doing so. It's a bit more difficult at this time of year because the children are off school and the quiet environment that we require at home for home working is not necessarily there. But staff have taken the laptops, and we got about 15 WTEs worth of home worker time over this weekend. And we've ordered another 60 laptops so that we've got some more to give out in case the weather continues to bite in. So the staff are doing an incredible job, and patient access has been severely compromised, as well as the ability to follow up with clinical calls. So.
And Renette, is there anything you can say about the extent to which people have been using our online tools? I mean, does it look as though that's helping to absorb demand, or how much of an impact is that having?
Just to give you an example, our health, the other things that are happening in addition to the cold weather, of course, is that there are higher levels of flu. I was thinking of the other one as well, the winter vomiting virus I was trying to think of a nice way of saying it, in the population at the moment. And our colds and flu symptoms checker saw a 430% increase in usage from week on week. And we've just updated that as well. So yes, patients are using our services online. We've got many more of them now, and we can see in the population where there are changes in the types of illness that people are suffering from.
Okay. Yeah.
Just give the headline. In the period from April through to November, the cumulative total use of our health and symptom checkers was 5.6 million. But it is now running at the rate of 1 million uses a month. So it's picked up during the course of the year, and we're set to overachieve the volume aspirations that we set at the beginning of the year very considerably. So I think that's partly the impact of more people having colds and flu and more likely to go on to colds and flu checker, but it's also because we've got many more health and symptom checkers available.
Yeah.
So it's multiplying up the uses.
Okay, Trevor.
Can I pick up the issue of the return of non-recurrent funds?
Yes.
It's a very, very positive gesture towards the SHA to send back non-recurrent funds. In previous years, we've used non-recurrent funds to ensure that we deliver the best possible outcome at the year end. Yeah. Is there any risk that we are exposing ourselves to pressures in the second half of the year by returning these funds now? Sure.
The funds, whilst we've agreed to return of funds, we haven't physically passed those funds across. The forecasts that they've all been based upon are signed up across the executive team. They relate to specific schemes, specific areas, and we are content with the overall forecast for the organisation that we can return those monies and secure a sound financial position at year end.
Okay. Ruth?
John, I'd just like to add that on Friday we wrote to the department, every SHA and every ambulance trust, providing them with details of our performance and the actions that we were taking to address the performance issues, particularly with ambulance trusts in terms of how we could work together to manage the demand. I think the other thing to add is a lot of the local press is just putting the telephone numbers, so we've written to the NHS communications managers to ask them to push online for telephone.
Okay. Brian? Please do, yes. Okay, fine. So, Brian, we've got a slight technical issue. We heard you loud and clear. In fact, you had a certain sort of heavenly resonance around the room. But just for people who are watching online, what Brian Gaffney, our medical director, has described is the fact that the volume of calls we're getting is now increasingly valuable to the Health Protection Agency, and is giving a warning of the rising rates of flu, which is very helpful for the rest of the NHS, about 10 days ahead of the impact on general practice. So I think it's a very pleasing contribution that we're able to make. So we're on two levels, really. I mean, we're clearly making a contribution to patients in the NHS by supporting people who are contacting us with flu-like symptoms, and then we're also able to provide the secondary service, which is to give the information back to the NHS and colleagues about what's happening. So that's a good thing to hear. Okay, Renat?
Can I just make potentially a final point? Just
Hope so,
drawing
yes.
together Trevor's and the other conversation that we had before, is that because we think the weather might stay like this is, obviously it takes us a bit of time to train and develop new members of staff. We've taken the decision and sent offer letters to about 30 headcount, 21 FTE nurse advisors to start in January, along with another 80 agency nurses to start in January. That gives us much more flexible capacity within the system. Plus, we've asked our insourcing partners, Conduit, to recruit another 50 FTE health advisors, as well as looking for volunteers from our Choose and Book call handling community of who would like to be dual trained across so that they can become health advisors as well. All of this activity has been factored into the end of year cost projections, so that we're not giving back money that we would otherwise be using in order to shore up the service.
Okay, so you're building the resources that we need to deal with the situation. Good, okay.